June 27th, 2024. We're at a place we've been to once or twice before, and we've seen this fellow once or twice before. What's your name, young man?
My name is Dick Soper, otherwise known as Dick Lozier, I guess, prior to this time.
Oh, don't talk about Lozier right now as they're tearing down that building.
That's the end of the story. Every story has a beginning and an end, and the first started in 1901, and now this is the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a long-standing building. What do they call it? The boathouse, I guess, because they made Lozier boats and motors and stuff, and then Lozier car, of course. But
Right.
it had that slanted sidewalls and a kind of unique building up there by GP on Margaret Street. But this week, as we're talking, they are tearing it down. So we're not going to talk about Loziers.
Well, I'll say one last postscript to that. I had asked there's a 10-ton steam-powered train in there. And I asked for the data plate on the crane, and they are giving it to the museum. They're making a donation to the museum. So at least a piece of it's coming here anyway. We'll have a little bit something, yeah.
Well, we're not here to talk about the Lozier. We're going to talk about what tonight, Nick?
We are talking about trains. I'm doing a series of presentations about the railroads of Clinton County. And what this is going to involve, originally we thought it was going to be 4 parts. It's probably going to be 5. It's changed a little bit from when I started. When we started, we were just taking photos from our collection and some things that I had. And the presentation would be that way. Well, I've since had a couple of friends, very young people that have their own business, and they're doing audio-video presentations, and they have a drone. So this presentation tonight is on Rouses Point, okay? And the previous one was kind of an overview of the Northern Railroad, which went from Ogdensburg to Rouses Point. And it was a little bit about this. Tonight we're getting into specifically the town of Rouses Point. I'll show you some pictures a lot of people haven't seen, and we've got a map that I got all covered with different colors because there were so many railroads coming into Rouses Point. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And this all started with an old photo album from the turn of the century. And I was going through there, preparing it for our archives here.
Well, turn of the century, it's only 24 years ago.
Yeah, well, not the other century.
Oh, the other century.
The one before that one. Yep. And so I found a little interesting thing, and from there, it's led to this new program we're doing here now. Yep.
Yeah, that Northern Railroad, the ONLC,
Yep.
came through in 1850. We got people. You can come on, don't mind us. Just wander right through here. Okay, so that ONLC 1850. Was that the first one through Clinton County? Went from Ogdensburg.
It was the first one, but it was not longer after that many others, including the Rutland over in Vermont. They all started from 1947 or 1847 through around 1852, 53. Of course, continued right through till the end of the beginning of the 20th century and beyond. So, yeah.
Yeah, and when the D&H first went north-south, it actually went through Moores.
That's correct, yeah, Moores Junction.
Yeah, they switched
And that's
off
our
to
next
Chazy.
stop. This today is Rouses Point. The next one will be Moores, and we will definitely be flying drones at that place because it's kind of an out-of-the-way place. A little hard to judge where the tracks were, but anyway.
Yeah, if you get that
Yeah.
aerial view, sometimes you look at maps and you can see where the
Yeah.
tracks were, but
Well, this is
you
what
drive by. And
we're going to
can't.
start with the map, and we're going to go down to where the actual location is. Yeah, and then we're going to do. Then we're going to Lion Mountain. We're going to do the whole same thing with Lion Mountain, and then we're coming to Plattsburgh. And we may have to do two talks on Plattsburgh. Yeah.
Yeah, just you don't set a limit here. If you do what it takes.
That's
you're
right.
talking history. You want to give it the
Exactly,
attention
yeah.
it deserves.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be old people like you around forever. So
That's
we
correct.
gotta take
This
advantage
is a
of
legacy for me. All these things I do, hopefully will outlive me someday, and you'll still be able to come and hear Dick Soper talk about Lozier. By the way, I did photograph the inside of the boathouse.
Did you?
So we got pictures of the latest
Oh,
of
good.
what it looked before the demolition. Yep.
Okay.
I was very grateful to George Pacific for letting us do that.
Okay. If you run out of things to say, my wife, her father worked for the railroad in Rouses Point. And,
Okay.
So she said she'll talk for half an hour.
If I make a mistake, you could correct me.
So, yeah, it's a little hard to see someplace where those tracks went by, and I kept threatening to do it, and I don't think we're ever going to do it. But I talked
Yeah.
to Jim Jones, who's a great railroad enthusiast,
Oh, yeah.
about starting in Rouses Point and making our way up to Churubusco and
Sure.
showing where all the tracks cross the streets and stuff. Like in mowers, you go there now, and you can't even tell when it crosses Route 11 where it crossed Route 11.
Well, it's the
But-
main road now, Route 22.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
that's part of the bridge there. Yeah, but
Yep.
it crossed.
You folks, come on right by us here. Some more folks coming in.
No, where it crossed and went up to that train station that you're going to visit, you can't even tell that now. Where 25 years ago you could.
Right.
Yeah, so time marches on.
It does, it certainly does.
Okay,
And we're going to preserve it.
that's right. At least preserve the memories.
Yeah.
All right, anything else, Dick? I don't want to hold you up here.
No, that's it. We're ready to get started here. People are filling in,
It's,
so.
yeah, it's 5 minutes away from game time.
It is, absolutely. Thank you for
Thanks,
the
Nick.
interview.
Yeah.
Terminus, the history of Clinton County railroads. When I was a kid, my uncle lived on Miller Street, right where the train comes by. And I can remember, it's a brick house, and I can remember the whole house shaking because the huge steam locomotives were climbing up the hill heading north. And going up through there, I remember in the winter, the steam was blowing up as high as I could see. It was the most spectacular thing I think I'd ever seen. And so I became interested in trains. I'm also interested in other forms of transportation. I was formerly at the Transportation Museum for 12 years. I'm a car enthusiast. I built engines for Pratt Whitney Aircraft in Connecticut for about 10 years. And I most recently retired in 2006, about 18 years ago, from Bombardier Transportation, and we built trains. So hence this presentation. So when I came to the museum here, I'm new over here, things are done a little differently. And one of the things that they asked me to do, they came across an old photo album. And it had a date, I believe it came in 1990 something, so it's been here for a long time. And it was taken in what we call an accession. And then they asked me to go through, there's a bunch of pictures of trains. That's all they said to me. They want me to document what is this? What's this all about? What does this contain? Does it pertain to Clinton County? Doesn't it? And what are we going to do with this thing? So I opened it up. It's all about train wrecks. And you're going to see a few in my presentation here. But this is the thing that shocked me. The first page I opened up, trains leaving Rouses Point totaled 107 daily, 27 passenger trains, and 80 freight trains. I'll tell you right now for a fact, Albany in 1891 did not have 107 trains, nor did many places. This is absolutely phenomenal. So I kept thinking, is this a mistake? Who wrote that date, 1891? But it's obviously from probably a newspaper clipping. So that gave it some authenticity. So I decided to, let's go into the archives, let's take a look, see what this right here is all about, and then we'll try to figure out what this is all about. Why so many trains in Rouses Point? Now the program that we're going to do, last week I was here, I'm going to review a little bit of this, not last week, the last presentation I gave. We talked about the overview. Why did we need trains up here in the North Country? We have a huge barriers called the Adirondacks below us, south of us, and they're hard to get around and hard to get through. So why all these trains up here? So what I looked into, first of all, I ran into this thing. I don't even know where this comes from. This is the Delaware and Hudson Company construction chart. And you can see here a few dates in it. You'll see here that this section that went from Plattsburgh to Canada Junction, 1852. Well, the more research I did, I found out the Ogdensburg and Rouses Point Railroad was built approximately the same time, going from east to west. This one right here would be headed north in 1852. And you see there's not a lot of additional stuff until 1875. 1875 is when they had gotten through the tunnel, the Willsboro Tunnel, and that enabled traffic to go all the way down to the south. From there, you look at the dates, 1875 this opened, the train to Rouses Point, 1876. There doesn't show one going up here. There's one that goes up here to Moores, which eventually went out to Montreal. And then here, 1879, you can see they're just keeping going here. This is down on Line Mountain, Loon Lake, then here's Saranac Lake, and then ending in Lake Placid in 1893, all before the turn of the century. So it's interesting how this little map came about here. So why all this activity going on here? So what we had first, when I started doing research, it turned out that there was a lot of traffic, a lot of heavy traffic of goods and products that are being done by ships, okay? And those, we have the Great Lakes here. You see Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. The big difference between all these lakes is you see there's a connection here. All these lakes have a connection except our lake here closest to New York. So what they did the Erie Canal. I'm not getting into all these dates because I got enough dates to deal with here, but the Erie Canal runs across east to Albany approximately, and then most of the products that went across would have been then shipped to New York City. So what they did, the Welland Canal was built, which is just a little bit west of in Canada. The Welland Canal is right here. This is Niagara Falls, so this is the famous Niagara Falls. Well, obviously no way to get a ship around there, especially a big ship. So once the Welland Canal was completed, it completed all the Great Lakes connected together. So products coming from Lake Superior and other places would come down and be available to New York State. The big problem is that the Great Lakes steamer ships that they had would not fit through the Erie Canal. So there had to be another way to solve this. So what they ended up doing is they built the Northern Railroad, which went from Ogdensburg, which is an area where they have good access to there's seats right up here in front. Ogdensburg has a very good access to Lake Ontario. Big ships can come in there. But heading north from there, everything goes to Canada. So any products that we want to use and have here in the United States would end up going up that way. So that was the primary reason for going from Ogdensburg over to Rouses Point. Now, I read across, there's a book called Where Did the Tracks Go in basically eastern New York. There's one, Where Did the Tracks Go in western New York, because a lot of the tracks are gone. I ran across this one here. You can see this is Rouses Point. And this looks like somebody spilled a bowl of spaghetti or something on the floor and tried to figure out where everything's going here. So what I did this afternoon, I decided to make it easier. What I would do is divide up the railroads here. And there are, believe it or not, there are 5 railroads, 2 states and 2 countries involved in Rouses Point. The first one here is one we are very familiar with, the Delaware and Hudson, okay? And this is all the area in yellow is all involving the Delaware and Hudson. East to west, the green one here is the Rutland Railroad. It comes right across. Of course, it goes across the causeway, bridge. There's the various viaduct. There's all kinds of names for it. It goes into Vermont. Then there's this part up here that goes to 2 different railroads. One is the Naperville Junction Railroad, which was a subsidiary of the Delaware and Hudson. The Delaware and Hudson owned this railroad. Over here we have the Canadian National, or the Grand Trunk it's referred to. That goes up towards Montreal. So you had 2 railroads going to Montreal. We had one which headed over here to Ogdensburg. Then we also had another railroad, the Central Vermont Railroad right here. And this is their facility. And then you have all these tracks and all this kind of thing. We're going to talk about this in a few minutes. Now my idea was, and it still is, we're going to fly a drone up in the air. And then what it's going to do is going to dissolve, this map will dissolve into a drone. You'll look at what's there now. If we can get the drone in the right place, you'll be able to see where the turntable is over here and all of this equipment for handling the locomotives. You'll see the D&H station right here, which I've taken some photographs of it. Then you see all these up here. And what is this all about? What's this stupid thing going over here above all this? We're going to talk about all of this. Now, what happens here, the Central Vermont Railroad and the Rutland were not the best of friends. And a lot of companies that are in competition with each other, that's the whole situation. So they both wanted to come across the lake. It was pretty stupid to build 2 bridges to the same place. So they decided to share a bridge together, and that's what they did. The causeway that comes across the lake was actually shared by 2 railroads at the same time on their own tracks. Little hint for you, because there's something coming with this. So let's talk about Central Vermont Railroad. Now, why did all these railroads want something over here? Number one was, and I don't know the full reason for this, but we had some of the finest dairy products in the nation. That's what the people in Boston thought. And all the product that we can make here and ship down, once refrigerator cars were invented, they would take all they could get, because we apparently were, that was a very good product coming out of the North Country. There were also up in Canada, up here in northern Canada, between Quebec City and Montreal, there was all these fast forests of hardwood trees. Okay, a lot of hardwood could be used for products. In the south, way down south in Pennsylvania, there was coal that was needed very badly by all the Canadian railroads and all of these too. We don't have a good source of, we got iron ore here, but we don't have coal. So it kind of was getting ready the railroads were getting ready to do a lot of, they could see the advantage in building all these railroads. So I want to talk about this central Vermont here. So the central Vermont was more limited than some. Rutland went all the way across to Ogdensburg, a lot of passengers going back and forth, but this is where the central Vermont ended, okay? So they were able to connect into New York State with passengers, put them on the train and bring them wherever they wanted in New England. So if you have a whole train full of people, you let them off, you turn the train around and bring it back. How do you turn a train around? You can turn a locomotive around with a roundhouse, but how do you do it with this way? Well, this thing is called up here. There's this track goes up here. It goes past, this is all their station that they had. And it goes up here, and you notice it goes over here to the DNH. It shared this little spot. So the locomotive is here, it goes all the way up as far as it can, it stops right here. And then they reverse the engine, they throw a switch down here, the train backs up here, with the back of the train coming to here, it stops again, they throw the switch here again, and down it comes, and now they're pointed back to Vermont. That's called a Y, W-Y-E. If you're a train enthusiast, that's what that means. And this is the cheap and easy way to turn a whole train around. Okay, a couple other things here. I have to have a little cheat sheet here as to what all this stuff is. The roundhouse, first of all, for the Delaware and Hudson, obviously is the main railroad here. But the D&H, there's a 7-stall turntable, and I'm about to show you that in a few minutes. 7-stall roundhouse, I'm sorry, a turntable that turns any train, and a 7-stall roundhouse. All that's there. I first saw it on, I went on to the overhead view from the air of what this looks like. And all of this is still there. The roundhouse, the turntable, there's some other equipment here. This building is still here. So all this is still, and there's a mystery track over here I haven't solved yet. If anybody's a train person, I would like to know what this is, and I'll show you some of the pictures of it in a minute here. The diesel, the U.S. Customs House is F, and they're up right up here. So this is the Customs House. I got pictures of that. It's gone now. And this is the current station that's at Rouses Point right now. Okay, so I think we've covered this pretty much. Is there any questions about this right now as we go? Okay.
Where's the actual border on that?
Border is right, this is right there at the top.
At the top?
Yeah,
Okay.
right along there. One other interesting thing, if you look at it, this is a mile marker, mile post from Albany, 190 miles, okay? And up here, if you look at it, that's 182.06, 2 miles from this end to the other. That's a pretty big railroad yard. Accounting for a whole lot of trains. This is why there were 107 trains going through. This is why 30 passenger trains going through. They were coming from east and west, 2 railroads in Canada, 2 railroads in Vermont, plus the Rutland portion and Delaware and Hudson over here. Any other questions? Okay. So I read across this the other day. I was trying to figure out, I got some close-ups of this here. This shows Vermont, and it shows the growth of the railroad network in Vermont. So you can see here that the railroads started over there about the same time as here, 1848, 1849. This right here, the Central Vermont system is this one, which shows Central Vermont is this one right here. Okay, that's Central Vermont. What's interesting, you see, where does this go? To Boston via the Northern Railroad of New Hampshire. This section here, which would have been part of the Rutland Railroad, where does it go? To Boston. Okay. This one up here, which would be also, I believe, the Central Vermont, I mean the Rutland, goes down here to Portland, Maine, and then down here we go This one right here goes to Vermont and Massachusetts, and here to Boston via the Chest. Where's everybody going? To Boston. Remember I said dairy products and products that Boston was hoping for. Why did they come this way? Because the Erie Canal was siphoning off everything that went to New York City. Everything went to New York City. Nothing went to New England coming from the Great Lakes. So this is part of it. Now you notice also this little dotted line here. I found this very, very interesting because this one right here was the last to be done, 1881 to 1900. This right here was the Rutland Railroad, and this goes through the Champlain Islands, and most of that is still here today. It would connect with the causeway that went across here to Augsburg, so that goes to here. Now, going down here to Rutland, okay, Rutland is right here. You notice the train from in later years, from after 1850, 1853, it goes all the way down here into New York, and it connects with, guess what? The Delaware and Hudson. South. Again, all these dates were prior to us getting the tunnel through Willsboro Tunnel. Okay, so this is a little close up. If anybody's got any questions here, again, it shows the causeway here through the islands. You can see the effort they were required to come down the eastern side of Lake Champlain, but they kept close to the shore. Why? Because of Burlington. Burlington is a big city. Burlington wanted some of the goods to be transported there. Now these are just close-ups if you have any particular interest in anything, but it does show these. One interesting one here is the Connecticut and Pacific Railroad. From about central here, this goes to Portland, Maine. And this is the southernmost part of this whole thing. And just to give you an idea, this is Tarpon Road in New York, and this one down here would be going to the D&H. Okay, Northern Railroad going up, number 2, what they call the Grand Trunk Railroad, that went up, it hooked all up here to this town. I can't even read the town, but I'm not sure where it is. It goes where, follows the Richelieu River there. But this one over here is an interesting one. This is called the Naperville Junction Railroad. That was completely purchased by the Delaware and Hudson. So the D&H actually owned property right in Canada, right up to this area here, which is just south of the city of St. Constant. That's where it is. That was where it went. That was the northern terminus there. And then from there it went up to the Grand Trunk and through all the other railroads in Canada. So there were those 2. Okay, so this is a picture. If you go back to the map, I had the drawing. I'll just lay it up here. You can see this is where it comes in from Vermont. You see all these rails here. This is what we're looking at right here. And it says here at the bottom, train. This 308 is the train right here. It said is at the station on its way to Albert with the local setting to the right of it. This is the local train. In 1950, the Central Vermont Freight House is on the right over here. So those tracks I showed you, the Y goes up over the back over here. That's how they return their train around. But even 1950, which I can certainly remember really well. I was a kid still, but I can remember things look like this. You can see the 1948 Chevy there. Okay, this right here is what the track looked like. They called this a guillotine track. I'm not exactly sure why they did, but the way it worked was the Central Vermont, I believe, was on the right. And so what you have here, this track and this track belong to the Central Vermont, and this one belong to the Rutland. Believe it or not, they would not let each other use, even though they use the same bridge, they didn't use the same track. And it goes over, and once it comes over to New York State, then of course switches to its own yard that has its own rail yard. Okay, so here we went up to, we did some drone. We've already got some drone pictures and some other things that will be presented in the future. Of course, this is the site of the original Delaware and Hudson train station, built in 1889. It's been beautifully restored. It is on the National Register of Historic Places. And I was able to take a few pictures here to show you. This is what the building looks like as you drive up to the building. And by the way, you're going to see some of my pictures here. It looks like the glass is broken. Somebody made a comment about it. There's a reflection on this glass from where I was there. It was just about to start rain. By the time we got to the other side, we had a downpour. So I'm not blaming that on the cloud, on my photography, but anyway. So this is what the station looks like. It has a unique tower here on the, this would be on the south end of the station. This is where you drive up and park your car. And on the other side of the railings, so we'll show you some more pictures here. This is looking from the end of it. Most railroads have a place for you to get under if it's raining. You see they put that over here. This place was closed when we went up there. Most places open on Memorial Day. We got up there, they didn't open until the 18th, and I was in Pennsylvania at the time, so when this probably opened, so I wasn't here. Well, we're going up again. So this is on the railroad side. This is where you would come in on the train. One thing about this, I'm not sure about, I've seen other railroad stations where this part right here was like a refuge for ladies. It was a place that ladies probably maybe feeding their children or something or whatever, wanted a quiet spot. And almost all of these stations segregated people by male and female. The ladies were all on one side. If you go up to the Line Mountain Museum, you'll see it's divided up. Ladies on this side, men on this side. I don't know why this was, but anyhow, it's what they did. You can see the interesting architecture with the old chimney up here on the top. And here you can see the tracks come through. And this is where you would board. Now the station is not open for train tickets. It's strictly a museum. But you can sit here while you're waiting for the train on this anyway. So it doesn't function the way the way the stations used to function. So this is the side here, looking under. You can see the old brick, very beautifully preserved. They spent a lot of money. Jerry used to be involved with the museum up there. You were.
I was president of that.
She was the president of that, so she knows a lot about it. And we're going up there when it's open, and we'll get a little bit more information and the photographs inside. This right here was the freight house. It was just to the north of that building. I think it serves several things. One place I see it designated as the U.S. Customs, and it might be the customs freight, any freight coming in from the States, from Canada. I believe that's what that was. And it's gone. We inquired from the CP Rail about getting the Willsboro train station. We heard they were taking it down. They were going to demolish it. And we asked if we could take it for our museum over here. It's a good thing we didn't, because it would be sitting there, another building to be torn down. But anyway, they offered us this building. Well, I can't picture hauling that to Plattsburgh. It would be just a little more resources that we could have, but that was the alternative, but we ended up declining that.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
They offered before, when they were talking about taking this down, they put some kind of an x-ray machine. They couldn't get to it, so that's why they wanted this building gone. They offered it to the Historical Society in Ross's Point. We had to move it.
Yeah, I know, the same with us.
So we didn't,
yeah.
obviously.
So they made two offers, but who's
Yeah.
going to move a huge white element here? But it's interesting, the construction, if you see here, the tower, kind of mirrors the tower over at the station itself. The bricks and the chimney are very similar, but it's long gone anyway. This is another building, and I haven't figured out where this is. I thought it was that building. What I thought was interesting is the decoration, the architecture here. So they did a lot. Look at how the shingles here are all staggered and everything. I love architecture, so this is, I'm not an expert in that, but I also the way the shingles here, this little board, a lot of beautiful details on it. Okay, so if you go up from above and look down, Google Earth is how I did it. You'll find this is the roundhouse, and the reason for a roundhouse is that a steam train has to be put inside in the wintertime in bad weather. If there's even the slightest possibility of freezing, you got a whole tender full of water. Okay, it may not be full, but you got water in there. And also in the morning, when the train has to go out, the water has to be already in there. So a fireman comes in at 4 o'clock in the morning to get the fire burning in the locomotive, and he has to make sure the water tanks are completely full. Trains consume, if you take 1 ton of coal, it takes 8 times as much water to go the same distance. So once your one thing of coal is gone, you need 8 times that amount of water. So trains used to consume, steam trains, they used to consume a huge amount of water. The locomotives are normally backed into the building this way, because the smoke coming out, there'll still be some smoke and steam coming out, and it would come out through the top here, okay, the top of the locomotive. And this is a very long building. It's much bigger than I thought it was. Here's another picture of it. You can see the curvature here on the top of the building, how it goes around. This building over here was a modern building, quote unquote, for diesel locomotives. So they put the diesels in there, and they can do any maintenance or work in there. There's another interesting thing here that I'd like to write, if you have any idea. I'm just curious what this might be, but anyway, so here's this is another picture of it. So this is the back of the building. So you have this brick thing here, and you see the curve, it matches the front. So the building is actually like a bunch of slices of pie, it's all the way around. And you can see, I don't know what these are, I imagine that you could see through them. I don't know if they have windows up there, on there or not, but again, they're helping to protect the building. Sand tower, what's a sand tower? Okay, so trains in the 1800s, way back in the 1800s, I believe it goes back right to the very beginning of most of our trains, steam trains needed traction. You got a metal wheel running on a metal iron rail, and when that gets going, it has a tendency just to slip. You have positive traction in your car, you got rubber tires. Well, trains can't do that. So every steam train would come up, and up here would be a source of sand, and then the sand we brought probably down here right into the train. Okay, so this would, they have a deep, there's a dome towards the back, near, or I should say where the engineer is, and there's a dome in front. And the front dome is usually where sand is kept. And so anytime you got it just taking off, often they would just blow a little, they use the arc compressor, and they blow the sand right onto the rail as they get going. Same thing if it was snowing or if you're running into rain. Now another thing they had, and this isn't what they use there, but it's an example of a coaling tower. So a coaling tower is, you would bring in the source of coal. This would be a coal car with an opening in the bottom. So the coal all comes to the bottom there. It goes on a conveyor all the way up to the top. And then this reservoir is up here, all completely full. And 4 trains can pull in here at the same time and get filled up with coal. So one of those would have been here. I have no clue what that one looks like. I haven't been able to find a picture of it. Okay, then there's the turntable. It's very interesting to look at this turntable. And by the way, you can see the sanding tower there. Now the table is quite sturdy, as you can see, and it's hard to see down in there. Right? There's a lot of brush in there. And what they did, they attempted to fill it full of stuff so that, debris, so that nobody get hurt falling down inside the thing. But anyway, I was glad I could at least get this much. It's quite a distance down there. Now the turntable, that's the center of it right here. You'll see more pictures of it a little bit later. The turntable has power up at the top, and again, you'll see a better picture. Here's how the power comes down here, and there's an electric motor here. There's one on the other side of it, on the other side over there. And when they want to turn the turntable, there's a single track, just like a regular railroad track, that goes right around the bottom. So the weight of this whole bridge is balanced on both sides. And these turntables are balanced perfectly. So a person would be able to, not with a train on, but a person could do it themselves. So this is a picture across it. You can see in between is just the same railroad ties that you would normally see. And what's this little thing over here? Well, if the power was to fail, you can take yourself, I think that's 4x4. You put a big long tube 4x4 in there and get 4 or 5 of the beefiest guys you can find on each end of them. They're these, and you turn the turntable yourself if there was no electricity. So interesting little detail on that. Okay, so here is where the power is, up here. They would have a telephone pole out here somewhere. The power comes in here. It comes down around, and then it's brought up to the front here where these electric motors. I believe there's 4 motors on here, 4 powerful electric motors in there. You could also turn a locomotive completely around. So if you had like a diesel, you brought up here and you want to bring it back to Plattsburgh and turn it around, you do it right on this. And here you can see the electrical connector. This stays constant, so when the turntable turns, it just pivots on that. So here's the interesting thing I found on the back of this building. So over here, this is the part that's the roundhouse. It's rounded in the back over here. This is the back of that other building. And there's this interesting thing here. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know exactly what it is. I have an idea what it is. This, I believe, what happened, there would be tracks on here. This would be open in the bottom. This would allow them to inspect the underside of almost any train. So whether it be a steam train or another one, or even a rail car that had to be inspected, something underneath. Although I understand at one time, I understood there was a pit inside the roundhouse, and I looked in the windows and there's no pit in there. I was told there was one, there doesn't appear to be one there. So that's probably what this is. And there you can see the curve around it. And here's that same building again. You can see the place here where this went on. It's almost like a bridge. And by the way, there's a ramp that goes off here all the way down, so the train gradually comes up to it. This is the locomotive service area for diesels. They would be run in here. So this is the back side over here. You can see the windows that are over here. This is on the roundhouse. Okay, this building here, again, I'm not totally sure what it was, but it was in the same location. It's right next to the roundhouse. It appears to be some sort of a transfer building or something like that. Again, I don't know much, but I figured while it's there, take a picture of it. You know what's happening down here in Plattsburgh. So let's get as much as we can. So, with 107 trains coming through Rouses Point and ships at the docks, there was this interesting building. Jerry, what is the name of this building? Is this the Steamboat Hotel? What is that called? The Steamboat Hotel.
Station House.
What is it?
Station House.
The Station House, okay. And if you see here, you see this paddle wheeler here, disembarking passengers in here that would probably go into this hotel. And I understand, I haven't been able to find any pictures of it, but the train from coming across from Augsburg all the way through, the engine went right into this hotel on the far side of it, and it used to blow smoke and noise coming in and that, and apparently woke people up in the middle of the night, so it didn't last very long as a hotel. But if you think about it, what would it take in a little town like Rouses Point to service 107 trains with all the stuff going on? They had cattle cars there, I know well, one of the things is the Vermont Central Railroad, the Central Vermont Railroad, actually had livestock pens right on the north side of that one. So on the other side over here, this is the other side of it, and I still can't find where the train went, but the train is apparently in this part of the building. And here's another one of these beautiful big steamers. Again, people are going all over Lake Champlain in the better weather until it froze. So this right here is called the Holland House. Again, some sort of a hotel. A lot of people would be transient coming in. They come in from Montreal. They come down, land in Rouses Point, want to go to Boston. Well, they would go on the Vermont Central or the Rutland, either one. And they would be staying in this. I don't believe this is up. Is this still up? No, okay.
That's the first one, that burned,
Yeah.
and then they built another one, and that one burned.
Okay.
So there's nothing there now.
Right. Okay, so when we were talking before, one thing I mentioned about the Y, what I forgot to tell you about was the diamond. Okay, what's a diamond? That's where, and this right here is where the Rutland Railroad would go this way. I believe I'm oriented correctly. This is the Rutland Railroad, this is the Delaware and Hudson, and this looks like, and something hit this engine and knocked it off the tracks right there where the diamond was. And I believe, Calvin, you did a special, I think you shot a special up there on that diamond with your...
We took Mr. Rosenberg gave us a whole tour of the
Okay,
roundhouse and everything else. That's
Yeah.
that's online.
yeah, okay,
And Peg Barcombe did a lot of railroad history with us too.
right. Okay, so this is an interesting wreck, and unfortunately we'll see a lot of wrecks from here. But anyway, what I found interesting also, this is, I see different dates on here, and that's a little confusing, because people write on photographs, but this right here is February the 1934, it looks like. And this is the Delaware and Hudson, the Laurentian, the cracked, high-powered locomotive and train that would leave Montreal going all the way down to Manhattan. And it came into Rouses Point and crashed right there somewhere near the station. Now this is after they got it back up on the tracks, and you can see the snow. There's all kinds of snow around it. There's a very poor picture. This was in that album. This is what I found out about. So you can see here, this is the baggage car that we had picked up, and then they're putting it back on the track. Lots of snow around here. And here's the locomotive, the other side of the locomotive. There it is, tipping. It's locomotive 604, which is on the D&H roster. Can you imagine trying to pick something like that up? These typically weighed near 500,000 pounds. So, and all there is, the rail is only this high, just approximately this high, and those things are rolling over there at a very high speed. This is what the underside looks like, and these are here, what you're looking at here are the brakes. These are the thing that applies all the brakes to the locomotive when they pull back on the steam, that steam-powered brakes. And there's another picture of it. Again, these pictures in the album, they're just some amateurs that took pictures and we have a record of it. I'm trying to find out what happened, because we have the date, so we should be able to look it up in the paper. We haven't been able to find it. You haven't been able to find it, have you? Did you try to look up this, or? Oh, okay. I'd like to try to find that at some point. Okay, so this is one of the last pictures I have here of this. And this is an interesting picture. This was taken, I'm going to say probably in the 60s, probably the 50s. And the interesting thing here, this is called an RS3, which they used a lot of these on the Delaware and Hudson. And this right here is a locomotive that has a steam boiler in it, because all these old cars were heated with steam. They were required to have steam. And this is the diner. And look who's there in the back of the car looking out at you, the chef, looking out to see what's going on here. And here's another picture, probably a little bit more. You see the D&H car. This right here, that's the D&H right on the side of the door. I know that's a 65 Olds Cutlass, and that's an Olds Omega, and that's a Chevy Blazer. And those are all around 60s, roughly 60s or 70 automobiles. And thank you very much for coming. It's a little shorter than I hoping it to be, but does anybody have any questions about that? Or what we're about to do?
I think the Station House Hotel was destroyed by a tornado.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
That must have damaged the docks and the whole 9 yards, I imagine.
yeah,
So
it damaged the railroad.
very interesting. Huh?
Did you say 1870 in your calendar? When it was destroyed?
It could be.
Read it every day.
Okay.
I think it's around there.
Okay.
So
Yes.
did you tell them about the different projects with Lion Mountain?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, what we're trying to do, we're going to go up the next, we've got footage already, we got most of what we need for Ross's Point. We're going up again. I took these pictures I took with my cell phone, which are not the best pictures. But the thing is, we are going up again to take even better pictures. We're going to be inside the train station. Jerry's going to come up with us. We're going to talk, interview the people there at the station. From my experience, what we do is, like, we have a trailer you'll see coming up. It'll be probably on YouTube, or it might be, I guess it'll be on Facebook probably. And it's all about this this project coming up here. And it shows, we flew a drone out over the lake, and we're right along with that, where that trestle goes across. So you see pictures of from the lake right up close to it, or of course you get close with the boat too. Then when we get up to Moores is the next one. We're going to go up. Helen we've been talking to Vicky Broussard, and also Chris Trombley. And Chris Trombley is the owner of the station. And I'm telling you one thing, if you haven't been up there, that is the closest thing to a time capsule. Have you been up there? Oh, it is. In Moores, yeah. They've got actually a caboose from the Naperville Railroad right there, right next to it, sitting on a set of tracks where the Rutland Railroad would have gone right through. And one of the things that I noticed when I went up there and went down the road, it's Depot Road, I think it's called, going into it. I couldn't tell which way was north, south, east, and west. I thought I was looking north at the building, and it wasn't. I was looking west when I was there. So by using the map that we had, you go back there a few stops and again look at the map. But you'll be able to tell where you're at, and especially with the drone. So we've got a map similar to this one, and the other thing is, if you were looking, when I was showing you the picture of the back of where the diesel train building was, where they repaired the diesels, there's a whole bunch of track there, and there's a bunch of railroad ties. And it would be nice if somebody could start a fundraiser for them to put those tracks at least where they crossed, where this diamond would be, because that's an important thing. There's not a lot of diamonds on many railroads. I think it's Canadian. Oh, yeah, Canadian National is the railway up there, the Grand Trunk. It's now called the Canadian National. That goes to Maine, doesn't it? No, does the Canadian National go over to
Yeah,
Maine?
well, CP does.
Oh, CP, Canadian Pacific.
Yeah, which
Okay.
is Kansas City Southern now.
Yeah, yeah.
Canadian National may be cut through parts of Maine, northern Maine, but CP actually goes into Maine.
Okay.
And another, couple points I can think of, Pat and I just recently were in Maine and up in Ellsworth, there's a scenic railroad there that uses a Y.
Okay.
So we actually experienced going on the Y. The engine did, the train did not, but the engine did to turn around. And also the car we were in, can't think of the date, I think I sent you a picture of it, was originally a D&H combine car that went from
Yes.
Plattsburgh to
You
Lake
did send a
Placid.
picture. Yep.
And it's been restored and is used all the time in this scenic.
So I don't know if y'all heard that okay, but it's good that they're keeping some of these cars and restoring them and finding the money. It's difficult to do these days, but they are doing it. And some of this one was a local train that was used in this area, so it's at least being preserved. I went on vacation 2 weeks ago, for the last 2 weeks I should say, just got back a couple days ago. And what did I do? I went to 2 train museums, I went to 2 car museums, as well as some other museums too. So I guess when you get the museum in your blood, you keep doing it. And I was lucky, we went to lunch on a passenger diner that was built in 1870. It is absolutely, all the wood has been all restored. $250,000, $250,000 for the restoration of this car. And when you go into it, there used to be, right on the walls, there used to be lanterns, okay? There'd be a pair of lanterns pretty much over every table. And right above it, there should be smoke, where the smoke would come out. Well, they're electric there now, but the smoke is still up there right above all the lanterns. And when the guy was, well, actually it was a young lady that came in to serve her meal, she was talking about the car being restored and spending $250,000. I said, well, let's see, it's 97 degrees outside and it's 70 degrees in here, where they had air conditioning and they had ceiling fans. Not quite like they did back in 1870, but it was beautiful. It showed you the beauty. Even in 1870, they built things with high quality. The floors are black and white tile floors, but beautiful. The woodwork is just a sight to behold, and very nice. And you can go on the train. It's $20 for a trip, and you go through Amish country. It's in Lancaster County, and it's absolutely beautiful. You ever been? It's called the Strasbourg Railroad. And then we spent the first day just doing that. There's a lot of stuff to see in there. There's also a small model railroad there called the Choo Choo Railroad, and it's famous because it has got the most animation I have ever seen. There's a parade going through downtown that's moving the whole time. At night, the lights dim at night, and then all the street lights all come on, and then the carnival's going, and you see all the lights on the carnival. There's a fire, and the fire truck blows the siren, and comes out of the firehouse down to the house, puts the fire out. There's an accident, car hit a telephone pole, there's an ambulance sitting there with the flashing lights going back and forth on it. And little kids were in there, their eyes were ready to pop out of their head. It's an amazing museum. There's rivers running through the whole thing. And the work that went into that. Yeah, I think it's 1,800 square feet. One of the largest animated railroads around. So I had a good time on vacation, kind of doing what I do here at the museum.
So I have a question for Calvin, who's the town of Champlain historian, and David, who's also a historian, and everybody else in this room. Near where the roundhouse is, I think I've heard a building called the Banana Building. Have you heard that? I don't know, maybe I dreamt it, but it seems something, one of the buildings they used to call, maybe it's the roundhouse because of the shape of it, but, no?
If we'd be in that video with Mr. Rosenberg, because he was so thorough, just to give us a whole tour of that area with the.
And I'll tell you one thing that really disturbed me when we went to that roundhouse. There's a for sale sign in front of it. What's going to happen to that? Yeah.
When did they stop using the roundhouse and the turntable?
Well, the roundhouse primarily was steam trains. What they steam went up, I've got pictures, I was in a book today that we have, a book on steam was used up until the 60s, 68, 69. So the problem with steam is there's a massive amount of maintenance to keep a steam engine going. Diesel trains, actually there's a diesel motor in there, but it's not connected to anything mechanically. What it is, there's wires going down to the electric motor. So they're much more efficient. The maintenance is dramatically lower than a steam train would be. And there's a train called the Big Boy. These were made in Schenectady, New York. And 4014, they made 30 of them, I believe. I think there were 30 Big Boys made. 1,250,000 pounds were completely set up, ready to run. And they were made in Schenectady by Alco, the American Locomotive Company. And 4014, our numbers, locomotive 14, is still running today. They're doing excursions all over the United States. And this locomotive is 100 and, I think, almost 150 feet long. So it goes from here probably close to the Belcourt Brewery down there. It's huge. This thing is beyond belief. And it's still running, and that thing can pull a zillion passenger cars. But unfortunately, when they go on their trips, it's a little on the pricey side. I think it's about $1,500 per person. But 4014 is back, and they just announced a new tour. They're coming here, but they don't come to the East Coast. I think we have too many trains going around here now. Because that thing is, and they have to keep stopping, and they have to have water trucks following it. Keep filling up. They carry 2 tenders. One has, and they don't use coal anymore. All these have been converted, most of these, I should say, have been converted to fuel oil. They use like a fuel oil like you use on a ship or industrial fuel out there. So it doesn't pollute as much as it would the other way. But the maintenance is just phenomenal. I noticed when the train, we made a run down into the Amish country, behind all of it, where you could see, well, not what you could see from the highway. And the Amish farms are so beautifully done there. And when they came back, they were out there adjusting all kinds of things, like greasing this and putting water into things and that kind of thing. Whereas on diesel, you just run it. I'm not saying it doesn't need any maintenance, but it's much easier. And it costs so much money, not only to restore, 4014. There you go. Yeah. It's on a tour now. I noticed it just hadn't left the West. It was originally at a museum in California, and they were waiting to see if somebody would have enough money to do it. And the Union Pacific Railroad, which is a very wealthy railroad, these were used to get trains over the Rocky Mountains. You notice when I was given pictures of Vermont, let's go to this shot right here. You can see Vermont, the way the rails go. If you look at the mountains here, you don't see any trains in there. You see the gap here. That's where the trains go down through. Same thing right here. There's a gap here. So they have to be on reasonably, it doesn't have to be a flat ground, but it has to be on reasonable ground. Same thing here, where the gap is here. You go up there. Every one of these takes the easy road, okay, because it's very difficult for a train to, they also cost a lot of money for a steam train. And that's one thing I noticed. And of course, along the west coast over here, Vermont, it's a lot more level there. It's an easy place to go. You can also notice over here, I can just show you this just for a minute. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at this map. I brought this over from the Transportation Museum. This is a map from 1861. It's an original hand-colored map. You can see here over in North Carolina, they got off the thing a little bit. And you notice this railroad up here, this is the Northern Railroad heading across. There's no D&H yet in 1861. And then look at all the heavy industry here that provided, look at all the Great Lakes, and you can see every place in the Great Lakes. There's Chicago, down where Detroit is. I think that's Detroit.
Where the five
I'm
come
lost here.
together.
Huh?
Where the 5 tracks come together on the right side is Detroit.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay.
we should-
Right here?
Up, right there.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's Detroit. But again, look at all the heavy industry here. And then here is the Mason-Dixon line. And this, you see fewer trains here. You know why? They have what they call narrow gauge. So the trains normally are 4 foot, 8.5 inches. That's the width of trains tracks we have now. Back in, now we had 3 foot gauge. So the trains were much narrower. In typical passenger cars, there's 1 on each side. Now you've got 2 on each side. in almost all of the cars. And you see the train going out here and ends right here. The reason is the west wasn't even settled yet. Think about when we talked about this, we discussed the first discussion of putting the Northern Railroad across began in 1829. Can you picture what things were like in 1829? People were, if you went on a boat, you went pretty fast. But if otherwise, if you were on a horse and buggy, if you looked at the people settling the west, they went in Conestoga wagons, and it was just, you could almost walk as fast as the horses could pull those things. Whereas when you got onto a boat, they were fairly fast. You get onto a boat going over to England, it was relatively fast to cover that distance. When they got to the trains, this must have been like the space shuttle. You know what I mean? All of a sudden now you could cover hundreds of miles. And right now, unfortunately, Amtrak takes, to get from Plattsburgh to, I had to go to Schenectady because I had to drive a truck back up here for a friend, and it took me 5 hours to get to Albany, or Schenectady. So they have to make a lot of stops. So anyhow, this is our, and then behind here is a big map of Plattsburgh. That's the last stop that we're going to have. This is the map of the Plattsburgh train station in 1915. This is an original map. If you look over here, the roundhouse burned, I believe, around 1991. This was in the roundhouse, all rolled up. And a gentleman who was working for the D&H saved it and ended up donating it. This was actually donated to the Transportation Museum. And when I moved here, I brought it here. And this is our Plattsburgh roundhouse. This is the place up here, they call this Peace Point. This is where there's at the end of it, there's a place that's a brown light. I thought it was a sundial, it turns out it isn't. We had a boat that came in that had, there's a track running here that was an elevated track. It went onto a boat called the Oaks Ames. It's right over the center of that boat, right over there. A paddle wheel. That was the first train ferry boat that was on Lake Champlain. Before they had that was before the bridge across the north end of Lake Champlain. This right here is called the milepost. Okay, a gentleman. There was a gentleman, like I said, he worked for the D&H when they were getting paychecks from the D&H, but it was part of CP Rail. And he told the guys that were doing maintenance, if you find any old stuff, bring it to me at this museum. So they brought it here. And if you look on it, this says AF, you just barely see it, 18 miles. And over here, there's a big P, 8 miles. That is 8 miles from Plattsburgh, and they're 18 miles from Los Angeles. So there was a siding coming in. If you're in the middle of nowhere in an old train, steam train in the middle of the night, you wonder where you are, that's what these are, mileposts. Now you see them on the interstate highway, every interstate's got a number, and that's what this is here. Well, I thank you folks for coming. Hope I didn't put anybody to sleep. Thank you very much. There'll be a bit of a delay, I think, in getting the next one done. We're having another one at the Senior Center. Will be, what's the date again?
I think it's part one again. It's July 19th.
Okay, July 19th, the first part will be repeated. If you didn't see that one, and we're going to cover up some of what we covered here today, but there'll be a little bit more to it. And then we are going back up. We already got a lot of the shooting done up at Rouses Point. We're going back again to photograph the inside. We're going to do a little bit more drone. Then we're moving on to moors. We're going up to moors. I've already got a bunch of pictures of the interior of moors. But I use my cell phone. These folks have got very expensive cameras. What the price of a car we're talking about. So they're going to be taking these pictures, and it will be a very nice presentation, I guarantee you. So thank you for coming.
We're actually going to close this little segment today with what Dick Soper was talking about when we began our program. This building in Plattsburgh near the Georgia Pacific plant had a very unique wall here, kind of leaned in, as you can see, up toward the top. Not quite like a teepee, but that type of effect. And they've been tearing it down. A couple of years ago we learned that this was going into the works, and Now here in the middle, in the later part of June 2024, it is being torn down. It's certainly been a landmark here in the city of Plattsburgh for longer than anybody living still today, because this was built in the 1800s, so it's older than anybody in and around Clinton County. So it's being torn down. Lozier was a boat motor manufacturer, boat manufacturer, and then they became a luxury car manufacturer. Ended up, I believe, going to Detroit later, but the Lozier Motor Works started here in Plattsburgh, and the Lozier vehicles were made here up into the maybe 1914 era, somewhere in there, and they continued to make the Lozier for a few years after that. And where Dick Soper worked before at the Champlain Valley Transportation Museum, that started with the interest in the Lozier automobile and grew from there. And unfortunately, the Transportation Museum is no longer with us. So we're going to change angle here, get another shot of this. But this is a little sad event that's happening in Plattsburgh for people who've gone by here and always stared and looked at this building, and it's kind of like was a kind of a local treasure. Okay, I'm driving and Judy's holding the camera out the window. We're just going to take a little drive back through here very slowly. And if we can, we'll try to get a shot from the other side of the parking lot here, just to show what the destruction has been so far here on this June 27th. And I don't know if Judy can get the corner, upper left corner of that building where the bricks are there. You can see where the old wall kind of leaned in there and attached to the building that's still standing. So this is what it looks like from this angle. We're going a little slow here because of traffic and people going by. And we'll pick up another angle. Okay, the sign says no trespassing, so we'll just casually drive through here. Obviously, this is the GP parking lot. Just gives you another angle here on what's going on, and there has been some drone footage I've seen on Facebook and so on. So this has been recorded in this ongoing tear down of this long-standing building here. So that's going to wrap it up. Nice job by Dick Soper today, and we invite you to check out Hometown Cable. We've got an extensive amount of videos on railroading, 3 or 4 part series with Peg Barcombe on the history of Rouses Point railroads. We did that tour with Mr. Rosenberger. We did Oral Parsons with that NJ caboose, and we got when that caboose was moved to Moore's Fork, to Moore's, where it is now. We've done extensive coverage with Larry Marnes on that Moore's train station. So we've been inside the Rouses Point train station when it was active, and now as a museum. So there's extensive footage if you want to learn more about railroading in the Northern Tier. Thanks for watching.